Do you like Christmas movies?
Yeah, they're okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
sorry.
Just the time in general.
Welcome to It's Always Sunny in Winter Wonderland. It's always snowy in Hollywood, huh? We never did that one before. We always choose the
We've
Hollywood,
done
change the
that one
Hollywood part.
before.
Have we?
Shut up.
We've definitely done that before.
We always change the whatchamacallit, the location. We never change the sunny part. It's always sunny.
No, we do. I've done it before. Can't
All
recall off
right,
the top of
all
my
right.
head any examples, but I know I've done it.
That opening was a reference to Scream, not even one of the movies that we're talking about today, but it's relevant. So, anyway, I'm your host, Red. I'm Red Claws, and these are my two elves, my two
My
whimsical
name's
elves.
Patty, and I triple dog dare you to sit through this entire podcast episode.
And I'm Lugia, and I shot my eye out.
All right, yeah. I like how not a single one of us referenced Black Christmas.
Well, I've seen A Christmas Story numerous times in my life. I've only seen Black Christmas once, and it was yesterday, as of the time of recording this.
God, what were we talking about, like, right before the episode
I said
started?
Merry Christmas, and you guys started belittling me because
It's not
it's
Christmas.
January 6th.
I agreed with you that it's Christmas because January 6th, according to several like denominations, some people think Jesus was born on January 6th. And also January 6th is like Epiphany and 12th night anyway, so it's still like in the Christmas season. You guys know the 12 days of Christmas, right?
I thought that
Never
was
heard of
like
it in my life.
I thought
Not
those
a
were
damn
days
clue.
leading up to Christmas, not
It's not
the
leading up to
days-
Christmas. It's after Christmas, which that's the thing that surprised me. Like when I found that out, I was like, oh, it's not the lead up, it's the like after part. And I was like, huh, that's pretty
That
interesting,
is a
right?
lot of. What are you gonna do with all those birds that your true love gave you?
Can't feed them all.
I don't know. Why can't you
Because
just
it's,
let them go free?
I don't know.
Mhm.
What it's
Why do you need to
12
keep 'em?
drummers drumming, 11 pipers piping, 12 lords a leap, no, 10 lords a leaping, 9 ladies dancing, 8 maids a milking, 7 swans. What's the sixth day?
10 golden
6
rings.
geese a laying. 6 geese a laying. 6 geese a laying. 5 gold rings. 4 calling birds. 3 French hens. 2 turtle doves. And a partridge in a pear tree. Yeah, a lot of birds.
You ever see the Office episode?
Nope.
Oh, a guy gives the person like the 12 days of Christmas, and like halfway through, she's just like, "Please, these birds, I'm just getting attacked by random birds. It's awful. Stop."
Actually, here's a question for you guys. Have you ever actually seen a partridge?
I don't believe so.
I
I was
know
singing a
Harry
song one day at
Partridge.
work, and a coworker of mine said, "Have you ever actually seen a partridge?" And I'm like, "Actually, I don't think I have. I don't think I've ever actually seen a pear tree either."
I don't know what a partridge is, and then I googled it, and
It's a bird that looks
it's a
like a pear, hence partridge in a pear tree.
No, definitely
it's a
not
weird
IRL.
bird. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
never
no,
seen this.
me neither.
I've never seen this animal before.
Anyway, on the 13th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 2 Bob Clark movies.
I also feel like we were talking about like one other thing though, like right before, something to do with Scream. I don't know.
The phone. That's
Oh,
the only connection.
yeah, unrelated. You know that voice in Scream? Lugia, you're better at the voice. Do it for a second.
Okay. What's your favorite scary movie?
Okay. Do you remember like in the early like 2010s, late 2000s, like a lot of like random songs would have be like real trap shit, trapaholic, walk with your boys. I swear it's the exact same dude that does a Scream voice, and that always like fucks with me
The
because
same
like
guy who does "Damn son, where'd you find this?"
yeah, yeah.
That's the guy.
I think that one might have been a different person, but you know what I'm talking about. It's that same field of things.
Yeah.
I swear, the Walk with Your Boys one sounds exactly like the Scream voice, and I'm not. It's so funny to me because I'm just imagining like like him starts rapping over the phone or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, Christmas season, Black Christmas, and this is actually one of the craziest possible coincidence. I think this might actually be a first for us, where in between me recommending the movie and us talking about it, the main character died. So Jessica Bradford, the main character of the movie, she was played by Olivia Hussey, who passed away December 27th. Rest in peace, Olivia Hussey. You did great work. We're gonna talk about your great work in a few minutes. But yeah, I don't
Other
know.
than this movie, what else is she known for?
She's probably best known for Romeo and Juliet. That's what sort of brought her international fame. She was in the
Which
60s
one?
movie, the
There's literally
1968
okay.
one.
Okay, I was gonna say
The
there's
19
literally hundreds of
yeah,
adaptations.
the 1968 one is considered like to be particularly like particularly good. Like most people consider it the best adaptation. Like it even won like a bunch of Oscars. She also played Mary in the miniseries Jesus of Nazareth. She was in Death of a Nile, that Agatha Christie movie. She's also in Stephen King's It. I'm not sure who she played. I generally don't remember. Um, Other people died too. Donkey from Shrek died. Not Eddie Murphy, the actual donkey that the animators like used as a reference.
I was about to say, like, you mean Eddie Murphy.
No, Eddie Murphy is alive and well. I mean the actual donkey they had in the studio that they were like looking at while they were animating.
What is the average lifespan of a donkey?
I don't know, but this one lived to 30. I'm not surprised, but also like I was like, oh right, huh. I guess donkeys do live that long.
Yeah, Google says between 27 to 40 years.
It's not like something I ever like think about. It was like, huh, I guess yeah, 30 years, that makes sense.
While we're on the subject of remembrance, former President Jimmy Carter passed away. I feel like we talked about him very lately because, I mean, he celebrated his 100th birthday. Yeah, on December 29th, meaning he lived exactly 100 years, 2 months, and 28 days.
That is crazy.
Jimmy Carter is known for being the closest a president got to not going to hell because he did a lot of humanitarian work after his presidency.
But one more noteworthy passing is that Britt Allcroft, the creator of the Thomas and Friends TV show, passed away. We all grew up on Thomas here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't watched Thomas since I was a kid, but I do have little cousins who are big fans of Thomas, and like occasionally at like get-togethers, like it'll be playing on the TV. Occasionally, like I'll see an episode that I kind of recognize and catch a glimpse of it. Honestly, it still holds up incredibly well. We grew up on it like right before it switched over to CG.
I
So, like,
forgot
you know,
it
like,
went to CG because I've always remembered it
Yeah,
for
no,
like the stop motion.
it felt like a place you could actually visit because it was, made from real stuff.
The new Wallace and
Charming.
Gromit is still stop motion, right?
Yeah.
If that was in
Was
stop
not
motion, that'd be fucked up.
was not expecting to hear the passing of Britt Allcroft. So rest in peace and thanks for the childhood. Enough of the morbid stuff. Let's spread some holiday cheer.
Yes, by talking about murder.
And a Christmas Story.
Yeah, but mostly the murder. So, Black Christmas came out in 1974. It was directed by Bob Clark and stars Olivia Hussey and Margot Kidder and a couple other people. We already talked about Olivia Hussey's previous work, but most of you guys would probably know Margot Kidder as Lois Lane in the original Superman movies. Some a little I guess background on Black Christmas is that Black Christmas is widely regarded to be the first slasher movie, and it was like particularly noticeable for heavily inspiring Halloween and Scream in particular. Like to the point where John Carpenter actually worked with Bob Clark at one point, and he even like asked Bob Clark if he ever had like an idea for a sequel for it. And I think Bob Clark mentioned it was like, oh, I'd have the killer like come back to the sorority house. I'd probably do it on a different holiday, like Halloween or something. And obviously John Carpenter, heard that and decided to kind of run wild with it. Bob Clark, fully proved he thinks Halloween's a masterpiece. But yeah, I think it's just kind of funny that the first slasher movie, a horror thing, wasn't a Halloween. It was Christmas. Like that's just kind of funny that they started off with the juxtaposition and not
And
like
it
with
is
just
funny
the
that you mentioned Halloween because I got a lot of vibes from the first movie specifically from this one.
yeah, because again, like he was directly inspired. So to give like a full rundown of the history of slashers, a lot of like elements existed in other movies before. Like there was a movie about a killer called Peeping Tom, which had like a similar POV thing, but one that was like an actual camera, was a guy filming it, and there was like a couple other elements. It wasn't like a mask guy. I think Psycho, I was probably like the first like movie where like you're following a stab killer with like a big body count. And there was like a couple other things that kind of like invented the trope, but like Black Christmas is basically the first one to do all of it together. And it also invented the phone thing. The phone, like the call is coming from inside the house. That's original Black Christmas. It actually didn't invent that. You combined a bunch of things and then it added some own innovation and yeah, became very influential. In some ways, you can argue that like many parts of this were kind of like the voice was like probably taken from like The Exorcist. But like there's a lot of things. I will say one thing that does still make Black Christmas stand out to this day is the fact that we never see the killer.
You see his silhouette, and you can make out his hair with the way the lights are arranged, but you don't actually see his face.
Yeah, and you don't know who he is too, which is like interesting because like some people argue that's why Christmas wasn't always like the most marketable because like you can't buy you can buy a Michael Myers costume, a Scream costume, a Leatherface costume, but you can't buy one for this. But I think it gives it a unique flavor, like even to this day. It was originally developed by Canadian screenwriter Roy Moore. Basically came up with the idea for the film due to an urban legend, which was widespread in the 70s. Basically about it's just some like one of those like rumors like kids would like spread around and be like, oh, this guy got killed like on the holidays or something. So like, here this urban rumor, this urban legend. It was like, yeah, sure, why not? Bob Clark was sort of drawn to it because he wanted to sort of explore the fact that high school students and particularly college students have always been depicted like too pristine, like not with like any truth to it. And with the 70s, the Hays Code were gone. He was like, we can just show that like college kids are really fucking raunchy. In fact, a quick aside, I think Margot Kidder is fucking great in this movie. Like she's the one that's like super crass and stuff. And I don't know, a lot of that stuff was like pretty funny, especially the fellatio gag. But I like the like naturalism. It felt like very, I don't know,
I
real.
actually thought she was going to be the main character when the movie started, since it seemed to be mainly focused on her.
That's another thing a lot of horror movies like to do. Like Scream did the similar thing with like you open up on someone else and then she's not the one. And
I think Psycho is the most
Psycho.
apparent, yeah, because you spend like the first half
Yeah.
hour with the girl, and then she dies, and then the rest of the movie focuses on the couple.
Fun fact, Gilda Radner was gonna play Phyllis, but she had to drop out a month before filming because she joined SNL. I say joined SNL, but it was the first season of SNL. But yeah, so she got replaced by Andrea Martin, who was in Second City, which was another comedy troupe. But yeah, I guess a quick rundown is basically it's kind of like a murder mystery, almost where like someone goes missing, no one knows what happens. Us, the audience, know that it's a killer, but that's kind of slowly revealed to everyone else. Yeah, it's basically this kind of like unraveling mystery. Right after Christmas, where like people are going home, so it's kind of got like a there's kind of like an urgency there. And there's a couple other like running threads like the main character got pregnant and wants an abortion and she's having strife with the boyfriend because of that, and also they've been regularly getting obscene phone calls, and all these threads sort of tie together at the end. And the big twist ending is basically we're kind of led to believe that it is the boyfriend that's the killer, and she kills him out of self-defense, but through the plot twist at the end of the movie is that he was not the killer, and the killer is still out there, and you're kind of left, unsettled. Kind of similar to Halloween, where it's like, oh, the killer's still out there. Although the main character doesn't know this time, but similar. So yeah, what did you guys think?
So I actually didn't know that this was like one of the first slasher movies of its kind. That's actually pretty cool looking back on it now. And some of the stuff that it does where you don't know who the killer is, and the killer technically gets away with the murder to live for another slashing is pretty nice. This movie didn't really do it for me though, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really like slashers as a genre. I think they're pretty formulaic and not much
In its
really happens.
defense, it invented the formula.
I
But
get
I get
that,
what you're
but
saying.
I think as a whole, I think slasher movies are kind of like
No, I get you.
formulaic. I love Scream, but Scream has a lot more going on with it, with its writing and its meta commentary on other horror movies.
Scream is more of like a murder mystery, like an Agatha Christie thing too.
That too. But like Friday the 13th, Halloween, stuff, movies like that are kind of like under just this giant umbrella and feel the same to me. I guess maybe Nightmare on Elm Street is a bit different just because Freddy Krueger is entertaining, but that's about it.
I will say that this is personally, I think this is one of my I like this slasher more than most. Partially just because one, I like the characters, like they felt like real people. When one of my issues with most slashers is that they're not, and or even if they are, they're really boring. When here, I actually found like their drama to be compelling, And you know, the side characters are actually like fun versus like Friday the 13th, where you care about none of them, you just want to see them die. Like I like Scream, but I felt like some of the characters there are a little bit like, I don't know, kind of some of them are a bit stock. Where like I don't know, like Billy Loomis doesn't really feel like much of a real character almost. Like he's kind of cartoonish.
You say
Like
Billy, what
same with
about
like Seth
Stu?
Groom. Well, I mean, Stu's cartoonish, but he's like in a fun way. It's different. Like, but I meant like, how do I put this? Billy's motive is like the dumbest shit ever in Scream, and that always like kind of bothered me. Versus like the boyfriend here, you see him as a regular person. You kind of like they kind of slowly build him, kind of losing it, and you get why, because like especially because like it's the 70s and like people were much more like they were much less liberal about abortion back then. So like I don't know. I just felt like I could like buy the characters more when I couldn't in some other slasher movies. Even like the main character, like she kind of is like the classic sort of pristine girl, like on the surface that most slasher movies have. But there's already kind of like the thing where it's like no, she's like pregnant, getting an abortion, which is like a little bit like scandalous. I don't know. I thought like I appreciated those like extra layers to it, and again, I just like really like the atmosphere. I just like I like the way like the movie's just shot with like all the black shadows and stuff. And also I just think the last act is just like a fun thing with like them tracing the call and then like you know trying to keep them on the line and then being like oh and then her running like I think like it's an exciting sequence. Can get a bit meandering a little bit the first two acts, but like overall I thought this was like one of the better ones. And like if you're a fan of slashers, I definitely recommend it because even though it's the first one, I really don't think a lot of other slashers really get what makes this one good, so I'd still recommend it. And what about you, Patty?
I feel like we've probably been in this scenario before. I'm in the middle between you two. I don't like it as much as you read, but I also am more positive towards it than Lugia is. Well, like Lugia, I'm not really a huge slasher fan. I'm not really a huge horror guy. Like I like thrillers and like there are some horror movies that I like, but slashers aren't really my thing. And like especially at Christmas time, I don't really want a grim, dark slasher movie. That's just me though. I thought this movie was okay. It had a lot of memorable sequences. I guess the two main things that stuck to me were one, I feel like it could have moved a little bit quicker. Like it wasn't like terribly slow paced. I just felt like maybe it could have gone a little bit faster. And the other thing, well, in regards to the ending, so okay, we've established the twist is that the person you thought was the killer wasn't the killer. The killer's still at large. And I'm honestly a bit mixed on this twist. On one hand, I didn't see it coming. When they established Peter, like throughout the movie, I was thinking, okay, he's a red herring because like it's way too obvious, like that it would be pointing to him. And I thought that it would be like one of the guys from the police station. I mean, one of them is literally named Billy, and the phone keeps referring to someone named Billy. So I thought that was a clue, but it's not any of them. And on one hand, I didn't see it coming, but on the other hand, it's this weird person that we don't know. It kind of left me a bit unfulfilled.
It also kind of
Like
feels
I
like
get
they're
that was
trying to sequel bait, but
It wasn't. They
like,
had no intention of ever making a
yeah, well,
sequel.
this never got a sequel.
I get that was the point, but like
They didn't have an intention
me
of making a
personally, I'm a
sequel.
guy that likes closure, and the fact that like we don't know anything about who this person is or what their connection is, if any, it just left me kind of like, oh, okay. But again, overall, it was a good watch. Like I'm glad I saw it, but like I don't think this is gonna be like one I'll be coming back to every Christmas.
I think it's funny. I think there's a pattern with me where I kind of like movies that don't have closure for some reason. Just something I
You
noticed.
like the
That's fair.
open-endedness?
Sometimes when a movie ends too clean, it just kind of like reveals how like artificial it is. But like the reason I like it here is just because like it's kind of like an unsettling note to kind of end on for a horror movie. Like
A Christmas horror movie, no less.
yes, and like it's not like in a cheap way, like you know Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, where it's like oh like the fucking hand pops out and it's like oh scary. It's like Halloween, where like you know they're still out there. Halloween obviously did it better. It's a good
Again, I don't
idea.
think it's a bad twist. I'm kind of mixed on it.
Halloween did it better because like you're not left wondering who Michael Myers is. You know who he is, but it's like freaky knowing that he's still out there. I think there is like kind of an additional kind of scare, like just you have no idea who this person is. He can be fucking anyone.
Okay, slasher qualities aside, this movie did have a lot of memorable moments. Like among the characters, I really like the woman in charge of the sorority house and how much of an alcoholic she is. Like she has like a bottle stashed away in a book in the toilet, like in the walls. Like I got a good chuckle out of those.
Is that everything on
And
Black Christmas?
yeah,
Do
pretty
you have anything you
much.
wanted to add, Lugia?
Not really. Again, this movie didn't really do it for me. I just don't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
much to say on it.
Again, I get it. I'm glad I saw this, but it is probably a one and done for me. Or maybe in like a few years I'll give it a rewatch.
Anyway,
A
I guess a
Christmas
Christmas
Story.
story now. So this
Hmm.
one is the one that you guys are definitely much more familiar with. Um,
Absolutely.
so about 10 years after Black Christmas, Bob Clark was like, I want to make another Christmas movie, and this time it's going to be a much more traditional
Let's do a silly one
well,
this time.
not traditional, it's just more of like kind of exploring like actually it's kind of mean-spirited. Like that's the funny thing about like Christmas Story is not a whimsical movie, but it's like it's about like
It's making fun of the whimsical Christmas formula.
yeah, you know what Christmas Story like makes me think. One, it reminds me of Peanuts because like Peanuts are like really cynical. But like one thing that I think is
Mhm.
funny is that in Black Christmas he was drawn to it because he wanted to show like how college students are in real life. I feel like this wanted to kind of show what like kids are like in real life because kids got that imagination. Kids may secretly curse. Kids can get angry or like greedy. All that stuff. Like I don't know. It
You
shows
backstab each other.
kind of like a realistic portrayal of stuff. But anyway, it's a little background on this movie it was written by Gene Shepard, who is this famous radio guy. So this is based on Gene Shepard's collection of short stories called In God We Trust. All those pay cash. That was really fun is do you know where these short stories are originally wrote? They were originally published in Playboy magazine because believe it or not, people actually did read them for the articles.
Huh.
Really?
Yeah, hearing the wholesome, whimsical tale of Ralphie in between naked women.
I guess that makes more sense than the original story of Duel was published in Playboy. Like a story about a killer truck in a magazine full of hot women. That makes less sense, so I guess
Yeah,
this is more viable.
yeah, it's kind of funny how like Playboy is just like kind of known as a nudie mag, but like in if you really look at it in terms of the history of publishing, Playboy is actually probably one of the most significant like magazines ever, and they had like a
Weird.
bunch of legendary interviewers too. Like some of the best interviews of all time are in Playboy magazine. It's kind of funny. There are collections out there of just Playboy articles or just Playboy like interviews or just Playboy short stories. A
Hmm.
lot of cartoonists like also make comics for him and stuff. Some of which you guys have probably seen because they get shared around, but you just
Wait,
don't know that they're Playboy.
I might be
Anyway,
mixing up. I might be mixing up this, but weren't Shel Silverstein's poems first published in Playboy?
some of them were. Some of Shel Silverstein's works were.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, all right. I don't know if I was right on that or not.
It was really funny is that Gene Shepard was actually heavily involved in this movie because he is the narrator. Yeah, the narrator is telling the true stories of his childhood, and he's just speaking to you himself, which is pretty cool. The narration styles I consider super influential because the Wonder Years and Young Sheldon, like other shows, kind of did a style after. I guess this was one of the first ones to really do that. To give you a rundown of the story, it's more of like just a series of vignettes. But the main running thread is that Ralphie Parker, this 9-year-old boy, he really, really wants a BB gun, and constantly throughout, you kind of see him try to get it. He tries to like sneak his parents into getting it. He's hoping that maybe he'll get a good grade and like get a reward. He asks Santa, who hates his job. I actually thought Santa was really funny because like he's not like overtly mean. He's just like very clearly hates his job. Like he is putting in just like enough effort to
The
like
bare minimum.
yeah, he's like putting in the bare minimum. Like he's like when the kids are away, he's like, ah, fuck me. And when the kids are, he's like, oh, ho, ho,
I hate the
ho.
smell
But
of
like you can tell, like
tapioca.
he's not trying. He's just like, oh, yes, kid, yeah. It's like,
He's phoning it in.
and
Like he's
yeah,
absolutely phoning it in.
He's just doing it for a paycheck, nothing more.
he cares like a little bit because like even when the kid asks for the gun, he's like, oh, I mean, hey, kid, you'll get hurt. But it also really fits because like it's a really mean punchline almost, and like he like has a mean vibe. Also, I like how it's shot in like the similar like POV style that because that's like probably the meanest part of the movie, and I like how it's kind of shot like kind of how like the POV stuff in Black Christmas was, where it's like like I don't know, it's like it had kind of the horror element. It was like ho ho ho. He tapped into that a bit. So a lot of people kind of think this movie's kind of like a low budget, kind of like kitschy kind of flick. I like how after watching Black Christmas, it becomes very obvious that that was intentional because he knows how to make a regular movie. He like intentionally wanted to give it this kind of like dream-like quality to it. Not just with the daydreams, but with like the hazy sepia tone and all that. What was I talking about? The plot, right? Sorry, I just went on. Some other running threads is the old man need to fix his furnace. He also is super excited. He won a major award, and it's a really sleazy lamp. That's probably one of the most iconic scenes from the movie is the sleazy lamp. The other most iconic scene from the movie is a kid getting his tongue stuck onto the ice pole. There's also a running thread of like the bullies, and a bunch of like other like just little bits, kid cursing and all these like little touches that like remind you of childhood. And it ends on a great note of Thanksgiving, not Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner being completely fucked, so they just go to a Chinese restaurant. And it's kind of racist, but
It was the 80s.
yeah, it was the
It was the
80s.
80s imitating the 40s. So
Not the 40s, it was the like 50s, but
So this movie is set in the 40s.
really?
Yeah.
1940.
You didn't know that? When did you think it was set?
I thought it was the 50s just cuz like I don't know, when I think 1940, I'm thinking like you'd mention the war.
Oh, this is like
Did
no,
suburbs even exist
this
in
is
the
like
40s?
post-war 1940s. This is like late 40s.
No, it says December 1940.
Like
I'm looking on
19
Wikipedia.
the beginning of the decade?
Yeah,
Huh.
Really?
suburbs existed. When did the suburbs get? When did the? Does this
Well,
take
I
place
mean,
in the suburbs?
the US wasn't in the war until 41, so
Oh, fair enough.
I
This
get.
was okay. So I guess it's technically pre-war.
All right, so we were both wrong.
Wait, but like, weren't they in the Great Depression like before the war? I don't know. I have some questions
Point
now.
is, it's set in 1940, and there's nothing we
Yeah.
can do about that.
I mentioned this like last time, but like if we didn't have time for a double feature, I was gonna recommend Radio Days, which is very similar to A Christmas Story, except it's Jewish. What's really funny is Radio Days also takes place in this time period, but it does mention the war. Well, I mean, actually, that's a bit more justified because it is Jewish, so that'd be really weird if a Jewish movie in the 1940s didn't mention World War II. But yeah, I mean, still. And it took place in the city, so like I don't know, more relevant, but whatever.
Anyway,
What were we talking about?
The plot?
A
I
Christmas
mean, we finished the
story.
plot. We ended on the Chinese thing. I don't know. You guys,
Well,
you've all seen Christmas Story
did you
live,
talk
right?
about when he got his gun?
Yeah, and he shoots
Yes.
his eye out.
Okay.
They made a live version of it. We've all seen it together.
Wait, have
I'm
we?
pretty sure.
No,
I
it
know
was
I
just
did.
me and you, Red.
Okay, never mind. But yeah, a few years back they did a Christmas Story live. It's not very good, but I don't know. It's fine. They fixed the ending. It's not racist in the new one, so there's that. No, nothing much to write home about. Just you can just watch this. Am I right to assume that we're all fans of this movie?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
If I can make a statement, a very controversial statement, this is probably my favorite Christmas movie. I know, what an original thing to proclaim.
I can get behind
yeah.
that. I
You
wouldn't
know,
say it's my favorite Christmas
If
movie.
nothing else, it's the one it's the Christmas movie I've seen by far the most.
it's not mine. Although I will say, every time I watch this movie, I don't. It grows on me because I feel like the first time you watch it, it's not like this transcendent experience. It's just this nice little moment, but like over time it builds up, which is probably why like it gets rerun so much because it's just like a movie that like I don't know. And since it's so vignette, it's also like the perfect movie where
24-hour
we can just
Christmas
like
story every year.
yeah. And honestly, since it's so like vignette heavy, it's kind of the perfect movie to just kind of like catch on the TV. Like you're just channel surfing. It's like oh, Christmas Story's on. You watch like a scene, and then you change it to something else, and it's like it's built to last in a way.
It's a cozy
Yeah,
movie that has just enough of an edge.
To me, it kind of feels nostalgic in the sense that since we're hearing the narration from adult Ralphie and he's looking back on his childhood, it's basically supposed to urge the viewer to also look back on like their time during the holiday season as kids and try to recapture that childlike wonder. I think that's what this movie does really well, is just looking back on the past and remembering the good times with Christmas.
Yeah, the whole
yeah,
movie is
and it's really
basically
funny how this movie is all about the little moments, and this is like one of the most exploited movies ever in terms of like I
Yeah.
don't know, like
It
marketing.
has the
Kinda
basic
funny.
premise of like a wholesome Christmas movie. I mean, it's a kid just really wants a gift for Christmas and tries his best to get it. It's wholesome. Except the gift in question is a fucking BB gun. And that just kind of sets the tone for the rest of the movie. Like it's not a
I love movies
sanitized,
about childhood that are
romanticized
like
view of like childhood Christmas. It's like kind of a raw, unfiltered, this is what kids were like. This is what kids are
it,
like.
it, it feels very like Peanuts, very Calvin and Hobbes, very like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, like that.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid is what I think most comparable.
I also always like associate this movie with like Home Alone, even though they're not like similar movies, but like I'd say Home Alone's probably my favorite Christmas movie, but like this is probably like up there, like maybe number 2 or something. Well, actually, my favorite's probably Tokyo Godfathers. We've already talked, or The Apartment. Okay, there's a lot of Christmas movies I like. Wonderful Time of the Year.
Would you say is your favorite
Um,
Christmas movie, Yugia?
I would have to think about that.
Home Alone's definitely the one I've watched the most.
I have a lot of nostalgia for Polar Express. I wouldn't say that's my favorite though.
Home Alone also has me fucking dying. Like I still think that shit's hilarious.
I'm not definitive on this being my favorite, but it's definitely in like my top 3.
While we're at it, the Christmas Story has been soullessly like milked for a while. And a lot of people are very familiar with like A Christmas Story 2 and A Christmas Story Christmas. The really bad Christmas Story sequels. Did you know there was a sequel to A Christmas Story directed by Bob Clark and written by Gene Shepard, and no one seems to know about it, but I decide to watch it, and it's pretty good. I think
What's it called?
it's called My Summer Story. It was originally called It Runs in the Family, but they later changed it to My Summer Story because that sounds like a Christmas story, and they realized, oh fuck, no one's gonna know this is a sequel. But yeah, I would recommend it. It stars Charles Grodin, who I'm sure you guys know is a great comedic actor, and it also stars Mary Steenburgen, who you guys probably know as the wife in Back to the Future 3. Ralphie is played by Kieran Culkin, which I did not realize till now. I just looked up the cast. Holy fuck, Kieran Culkin! What? That's crazy. How did I not know that? But yeah, I would recommend it. Not even close to as good as A Christmas Story, but it's good. Like if I'd give A Christmas Story a 9, I'd give this like a 7, 6. It's similar like kind of quality where like it's just kind of vignettes of the childhood.
And it's basically peeking into the childhood summertime, like summer vacation.
Yeah,
Does
basically.
it still have the narrator?
Yeah, same guy. Like I said, same writer, same
Okay.
narrator. It's the exact
Okay.
same narrator.
I'll
Because
give it a
again,
watch.
I think the narration actually like makes this movie for me. When you can tell like how excited he gets at certain moments, like when kids would actually be excited at certain moments.
Yeah.
Thinking about the gun, like you can hear the narrator just like he can barely contain himself.
I know you've been saying a lot of movies like these two would really pair well with. If you were to ask me, I'd say a pretty damn good double feature would be A Christmas Story and Better Off Dead, since they're both very
That's fair.
They
vignette
have
style
snow
movies
in
at
them.
Christmas time. One line delivery that always gets me, and like nobody ever talks about it, is when they first encounter the bully and everybody's like scared. And then it cuts to a shot of Randy on the ground, and the narrator says, Randy just lay there like a slug because it was his only form of defense. That gets me every time.
Also, it's really funny how there's a 10-year gap between all these because Black Christmas came out in 74, A Christmas Story came out 84, and My Summer Story came out 94. That's
What
just
came
kind
out
of
in
funny.
2004?
I don't
Polar
know.
Express, but that is unrelated to A Christmas Story.
Bob Clark even alive in 2004? He was.
Yeah,
He
he
died
died
in
in 2007.
2007. Let's see, what did he direct in 2004? Baby Geniuses 2. Oh. All right, any more comments? Whose turn is it next time?
It's me. I
It's
forgot
you.
it was my turn, so I just came up with this one on the spot. I know I have mentioned this movie in the past to you guys before. And I don't even know how to pronounce this movie's fucking name, so I'm just gonna type it in the Discord, and you tell me how to pronounce it.
I'm assuming this isn't a Christmas movie.
Oh no, it's not. We're past that now.
Okay, so we're just skipping. All right.
We're going into the dull, dry
Alright.
wasteland of January, even though I don't think this movie came out in January. So you tell me how to pronounce this, and that's what we'll roll with.
I think it's called Jiggly. This is a Jennifer
Ah,
Lopez movie, right?
Yep, this is the Ben
I've
Affleck
heard of this
J-Lo
movie,
romance
and
movie.
I've never heard anyone say anything good about it.
I have
It
seen this
is
movie, not by free will, mind you.
okay.
If you want to dull the pain, we can watch it together.
You know
All
what?
right.
Yeah, sure. We can watch it together.
Okay. So next week we will be
Fair enough,
watching, as you said, Jiggly. That is what we are gonna call it, and there's no other pronunciation for it as far as I care.
We could call it the J-Lo Ben Affleck movie.
That's too long.
How do you acronym that? The TJL
Benifer.
BAM. TJL BAM.
Benifer.
Tjilbam.
Laugh black.
It's easier to pronounce than the actual title.
All right.
And it's starting off the new year strong.
Even though this is not gonna come out for another few months.
As of the time we're recording this.
We'll see.
Whatever.
All right, Red, you got a
Christmas
closer?
in July.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.